Evening, everybody. My name's Matthew Driscoll. I'm the Mayor, and welcome to the meeting of Council on Tuesday, the 20th of August, 2024, in our chambers. To start the official proceedings, I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting on Jarrah country, of which the members and elders of the Jarrah community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries and have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation, and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture and their unique role in the life of this region. Council meetings are also audio and video recorded and are made available to the public via electronic media, including YouTube. First item is present. We have a quorum, but we have two councillors absent, Councillor Cordy and Councillor Gardner. Councillors, is there any declarations of interest or conflicts of interest? Thanks, Councillor. Any others? As we read through the papers or any discussions that do present themselves in the conflicts, please raise your hand. Next item is confirmation of minutes, the minutes of the 16th of July 2024. Could I have a mover?
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to move the minutes of the meeting of the Mount Alexander Shire Council held on the 16th of July 2024 be confirmed.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? All those in favour of the minutes, please raise your hand. Motion carried. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 5, which is acknowledgements, which we don't have any. Could I have a councillor move to suspend standing orders, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor. Seconder. Thank you, Councillor Neal. All those in favour? Okay, the motion is carried. So now we have public question time, and we have some written questions and some from the floor. So is there any from the floor that would like to come up and say? Yes, please come up and state. So I'll just, if you could just state your name clearly and state if you're representing any group or organisation, and then state what you want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. I'm Lucas Maddock, representing Mount Alexander Greens. It was a written question as well. I'm not sure of proceedings. I'm happy to speak at this point if that fits.
So, Lucas, are you going to say exactly the same as written, or this is additional? Okay.
Yeah.
Happy for you to speak.
Thank you. It won't be news to the councillors and attendees that many in the Shire struggle to find adequate childcare and early childhood education. We are in the cost of living crisis, and many community members are doing it very tough. One of the hardest hit groups are families with young children, owing to the fact they are most exposed to rising rents, property prices, and interest rates. And this group, who are already trying to earn money at probably one of the most complex and most restricted times in their working lives, and a time which is most vital and important to the development of their children. In addition to these pressures, when the parents and carers of these families can't work, the effects are compounded, and these can be devastating. And the impacts of these are felt throughout our community. Many of these parents are essential workers, forced to withdraw from the workforce. They are our teachers, our nurses, our doctors, our hospitality, and our retail staff. Many rooms in our commercially run childcare centres sit below capacity, owing to our rising property prices and rents, which make it hard for their workers to stay in our Shire, and the gross undervaluing of this profession, which makes it difficult to attract and retain staff. These factors combined make for a big problem in our booming rural setting. We have a childcare problem in the Shire, but we also already have the models for its solution. Owing to better working conditions, Castlemaine Childcare Cooperative is an example of a model which is able to attract and retain staff despite our housing issues, and is able to run the centre at capacity. That's because Mount Alexander's non-for-profit community managed model is better for staff and better for kids. And the good news is that it's a model which is economically sustainable, and it can easily be expanded or replicated. Council is in a wonderful position to make this happen. It is probably the best place to make this happen. We are enduring a cost of living crisis, and expanding the services available to our community is the most available and important tool our council has to help ease this burden. Is there willingness in council to expand or replicate the non-for-profit community managed model in our shire? Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Lucas. I might get Director Knight to answer that. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Lucas, for your question. So the challenges with the cost of living pressures, kindergarten placements and childcare availability, and the ripple-on effect that you refer to is certainly well known by council staff and by councillors. We also understand that this has been further impacted by the rollout or the impending rollout of both 3- and 4-year-old kindergarten. Council has already undertaken a range of initiatives to understand the current and future demand of kindergarten and childcare placements, workforce challenges, to advocate to state and federal government for funding, and that funding is not just in the dollars but also in the infrastructure and the resources. Council was successful in funding in June 2023 from the Department of Education, and they were for 2 specific projects that have only just been completed, and that's a kindergarten infrastructure and service plan, and in association with that service plan, or the KISP, looking at an early childhood workforce plan, so specifically just for Mount Alexander Shire and what were the workforce challenges associated with that. Both of those reviews and that funding that had been provided was in response to the early years reform known as Best Start, Best Life, and the introduction of 30 hours for pre-prep is what most people know as 4-year-old kindergarten, and the 15 hours of 3-year-old kindergarten, and both of those come into effect no later than 2031. So both the KISP and the workforce plan, as mentioned, have only just recently been completed. So that was undertaken with a range of kindergarten providers, early years educators, kindergarten managers and community. And we are now discussing the outcomes of those reviews and the evaluations and what the potential future models might look like that you referred to. As mentioned, it's not yet finalised, and we have an incredible early years steering committee. So the early years plan, which was adopted in April last year, in collaboration with the early years steering committee, will go through the outcomes of those reviews in addition to strategic objectives that are already noted in either the council plan or the early years plan. Further work's also currently underway regarding grant funding for kindergartens in the Shire, and that's happening at both a state and a federal level. And again, that's looking at infrastructure as well as resources and dollars. So I hope that answers your question. Happy to have any further conversations offline if that suits as well.
Yes, thank you, Director Knight. Councillor Maltby, you can ask a clarifying question. Yes.
Director Knight, do we have any data that the commercial run childcare centres are actually sitting below capacity?
Thank you, Councillor, for that question. I've not got any evidence that suggests that that's the case.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Director Knight. Thank you, Lucas, for your question. Any other questions from the floor? Yes, once again, if you could just please state your name clearly, state if you're representing the group, and then speak. Would be great.
Rebecca Barnett. I'm not representing a group as such. I'm just from the Maldon Bakery, and I'm just wanting to ask about how you're going to support small business in the region, growing from micro to a small business. My experience after purchasing the Maldon Bakery less than 2 years, I had about 20 months, is that I've grown from a micro business of employing about 4 people to now 14. And it's been really good for the community, and it's now like a mecca, a magnet for the community in itself, and also for bringing people into the region. So I'm getting a lot of tourists coming from the regions and also nationally, all over the place, to come to Maldon and Maldon Bakery, and it feeds out to the different businesses in the area. But there's been a lot of growing pains along the way. There is an awful lot of disincentive to grow. Economies of scale are such that there's an awful lot of legislation and disincentives in regards to tax. So I was wanting to see what the council will do to incentivise growing local businesses, because, as you know, there is nothing will kill a community and a town faster than closing businesses. It's vitally important that we support local businesses to grow, employ residents, and to ensure the longevity and the health of the community. Sorry, I will get to a question shortly. Basically, my business has sort of become an essential service in part that there'll be a right if the place isn't open on a public holiday, or to help provide a service for the community as well as the tourists that come in. So it needs to be open 6 days a week, rain or shine, at a bare minimum, as well as on every single public holiday. But there's no incentive really to augment the cost of staffing it, whereas other businesses that sort of have that value to the community do, and that's fine. We deal with that. However, there are other things that can be done. For example, we can't get solar panels to help with the cost of running the business because of the heritage overlay on the facade in High Street, in Main Street, sorry, in Malden, which sort of puts us on a not on a level playing field to other comparative businesses, because we have to protect the heritage overlay of the place, which is what attracts people to the town in the first place. I respect that. However, could the council come up with some sort of a way to compensate for the fact that we have to pay more for electricity because we can't get solar panels? Perhaps there could be a community battery, or perhaps some sort of incentive to help offset the increased cost of power. Also, training in TAFEs is woefully inadequate. I'm finding it very difficult to get bakers who want to take up the trade, because they're not learners that learn often via computer, but that's all that's being offered to bakers now. You can't get a trade unless you do it on the computer, which is absolutely ridiculous. They're kinesthetic learners that need to learn on the job, shoulder to shoulder with someone to show them how to do it. So that really needs to be changed. Otherwise, we're going to lose hundreds of years of knowledge of how to actually make proper bread, because people don't know how to do it. It's you can't learn that on a computer screen. That's another thing. Red tape, I find, is a real disincentive. I wanted to have accessibility to all people into the courtyard. That's part of my leasehold. Because I lease it, I don't own it. I don't have the capacity to change that. It's up to my landlord. So that's a discretionary cost that he doesn't need to do. I have made it accessible for wheelchair access into my shop itself, but for the courtyard, that because it abuts one of the assets of the council, which is a footpath, I'm not allowed to touch it. So having to navigate through the council red tape in order to have accessibility for people, which is a human right, I found a real disincentive. So if there are ways that the council can smooth these processes to make it easier for local businesses to grow and not be punished for wanting to grow as the demand comes along, and to promote entrepreneurship, that would be a fabulous thing. So if you could think about how you can do that to make life easier, even garbage collection, making it cheaper for garbage, things like that, which is a council job. I've actually paid myself to get rid of all the excess garbage on big events, because it just overflows in the garbage that is on the footpaths. So I've had to get rid of that myself. So if you could perhaps provide more bins for local businesses free of charge to help keep the streetscape beautiful and to reduce costs for the businesses, that might be another thing that you could consider as well.
Great. Do you want me to comment on it, or do you have a question? Or
just about how you can, simple, practical things that you can do to help the life of small businesses, to make it easier to grow, rather than thinking it's all too hard. Why should I bother?
Sure. First, thanks, Rebecca. Thanks very much for the question. And look, the question, the CEO wants to say something, which is fine, but just the question and statement, covers garbage, heritage, accessibility, TAFE, solar tax incentives, planning schemes, whole bunch of stuff in there. But what you could do, and look up, we have a whole economic development department. So maybe if you send me an email, just in point form, what I might be able to direct you in the right way. But we do support where we can. But you're talking about the feds here and the state here and a whole bunch of other different things in that question. So I appreciate that. But CEO, did you want to say something?
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, that's a long list of things to work through, that's for sure. And no, not at all. As the Mayor said, we do have some people who are dedicated to trying to work through those things with the businesses. The economic development team is small, but they will come out and spend some time with you and talk about what are the possibilities to deal with each of those things. There are things happening in relation to most of what you're talking about there too. So that's the good news. We haven't got time to go through that now, but more than happy, Mayor, to arrange for our primary economic development support officer. His name is Daniel Bone. I'm sure he would love to come out and have a chat with you if he hasn't already met you. And terrific. So we can follow up with Daniel and talk about catching up with you some more and working through with those things in a bit more detail. I think what I'd say also is the council has been working for quite some time on a draft economic development strategy. That's coming to the next council meeting for consideration of adoption, and a lot of what you're looking for, the commitments that you want to hear council is prepared to make, they're in that document. So I think you can see draft versions of that already, albeit the final version will be the one that's in the agenda for next month. But a lot of what you're talking about, council's heard that, and there are strategies, actions, plans to try and deal with that for all of our existing businesses who we want to see keep getting bigger and bigger like you are. So well done with that too. But we'll follow up, Mayor, if that's okay with you.
Thank you. That's great. Thanks, Rebecca. Any other questions from the floor? Yes, please come up.
Oh, my accent is enough for you. My name is Lou Restrepo, proud Order of Australia medal in the last King's Birthday, because I have been working in the last 14 years generating business opportunities for migrant women. Living in Maldon since 3 years ago, 2021, and now working to develop the same thing that I did for migrant women for macro businesses in small towns. Today, I come here just to generate reflection because small towns, I am not talking about Castlemaine, but I am talking about Maldon, Harcourt, Newstead, Bradford, Guildford, and many other towns are in the risk to die. And just to tell about Maldon, from the 681 active ABNs, there is just one medium business, that is the Mina, that employ 150 people that Maldon doesn't have any kind of contact, has 3 small business between 5 to 20 employees, Rebecca, the honey producer, and the AGA. The other 675 are macro businesses between 1 to 3 or 4 employees. And these people do not have any kind of support. Small towns like Maldon are built by macro businesses. And the questions, that is the question that Rebecca already did, is we don't need grants. We just need regulation that help us to drive and grow our businesses. And the reflection goes is, what do we need to know as a council? What is a business person? It's completely different to a corporate business or to a small business of 5 employees. And we need to customize services for them. I have been working with Mary Thinka and Daniel, yeah? But to be honest, we need customized projects for small towns. This is why also you are invited to this Village Business Expo, where we are going to put 300 business owners from 20 towns, because one of the good things that we can do is to generate collaborations amongst us. And you are a facilitator of that. This is just a reflections and something that complement the question of Rebecca. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Luz. Any other questions from the floor? Okay, so we've got a couple of written ones. The first one, it's being requested by Mick English for Councillor Maltby to read out. Thanks, Councillor.
Thank you. It's in relation to the Mount Alexander Affordable Housing Trust. From Mick English. I've been trying Victorian and federal government for 40 years to find a solution to cheaper housing. My concept is that land owned by governments, councils, be used to erect housing for lower income families. Both landowners would pay for the infrastructure costs and maintain ownership of their land, whilst homeowners could build homes for themselves at cost. Homeowners would own the capital improvements, house. The government council would own the land and charge a maintenance fee of, say, $150 per week to each homeowner for a 25 by 25 by 25 year renewable lease. This lease would be indexed to CPI or similar. Households with a health care card or pension card would be eligible for rent assistance similar to that of over 55 villages today. Autark Industries have homes available that are modern and meet all of today's standards and requirements. Costs are around $120,000 each. I'm happy to assist with discussions on this subject as it has been a concern for many years. Should an owner wish to sell at some stage, they retain the right to all profit. Congratulations to the Shire and councillors for this great forward-thinking action.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Mick, for the question. CEO, I'll get you to answer that, please.
Thanks very much, Mayor. And I'll just read from Claire Richards, our housing solutions broker, has already responded to Mr. English, Mayor, with an email. We didn't have Mr. English's phone number, but she's more than happy to speak with him. But she did provide this response to him already. I'll just read that out for the record. Thank you for making contact with Council. The Mount Alexander Affordable Housing Trust will be capable of working with a wide range of models for delivery of housing, as long as the form of housing does not seek to profit from capital growth of the underlying trust land. The most pressing need is for rental housing, which is secure, universally designed, climate appropriate, and in homes that match the needs of the households. And so this will be the priority focus of the trust. Flexibility is built into the way the trust has been established, and so it may also be possible, pending the view of the Australian Charities and Not-for-Profits Commission, for people to build their own homes on trust land under the community land model, which is very similar to what you describe. The trust's principal focus on delivering rental housing will mean that people will be able to obtain secure housing in our Shire, regardless of whether they have sufficient income to buy or build a home. So we will follow up, Mayor, to ensure that Mr. English is aware of that email, and certainly welcome him making contact with Claire directly to have a chat.
Thank you, CEO. I have another question from Bron and Terry. Oh, sorry, is Bron and Terry Willis here? Do you want to? You wanted to speak, but the question that you've given, I'm not going to allow because it's in accordance with clause 12.1.6 of the Governance Rules 2023, as it relates to a planning matter already listed on the council meeting today. So do you have anything else you want to say? Okay, great. Thank you very much. Any other questions from the floor? Anywhere else? I think I've covered them all. Thank you. Councillors, could I have a motion to resume standing orders, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby, seconder. Councillor Neal, all those in favour of that? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Item 7 is petitions and letters, of which we do have one. And I've just got to find that. Thank you. So this is a petition regarding safeguarding Harcourt's wildlife corridors in relation to the planned Harcourt C94 Malks planning scheme amendment, and Bron Willis is here to deliver that. I will read the petition. We, the community of Harcourt and surrounds, call for the protection of biodiversity in the Harcourt Valley through the Planning Scheme Amendment C94 MALX. We ask Mount Alexander Shire Council to protect wildlife corridors that allow safe passage for our precious native species from Langanuk, in brackets Mount Alexander, to the Walmer Forest. These wildlife corridors include roadside vegetation, corridors like Illies Lane, Douglas Lane, Shady Lane and Eagles Road, and waterways such as Barkers Creek and Picnic Gully Creek. We call for strong protection for large old trees, habitat for the brush-tailed pascagoule, and understory cover for threatened woodland birds. So that's the petition. Now, this petition is acknowledged and is noted, and that is the subject matter will be dealt with as part of the item 9.1.2 Planning Scheme Amendment. Consideration of the Planning Panel report and adoption in item 9.2.1, which is the Roadside Conservation Management Plan 2024-2020 at tonight's meeting. That's on the agenda tonight. The Planning Scheme Amendment C94 MALX seeks to provide direction for the protection of the identified high-value biodiversity assets across Harcourt through the applications of the Rural Conservation Zone, the Environmental Protection Overlay and the Vegetarian Protection Overlay. The aim of the Roadside Conservation Management Plan is to protect, maintain and enhance roadside vegetation for both ecological and safety requirements, acknowledging that roadside provide habitat for wildlife locations for rare flora and fauna. Director Neard, did you have anything else to say? Do you have anything else to say?
Mayor, I think you summed it up really nicely, but I do want to say thank you to Bron and the members of Harcourt Valley Landcare Group, as well as all the signatories of the petition for the support that you've given in relation to the finalisation of Plan Harcourt C94 MALX. It's been valuable to have that support and those contributions, and I do believe that the matters that you have raised in the petition are covered off in those matters that are before us, before council, I should say, this evening. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Director. Okay. Committee reports, item 8, nothing there. Other reports, which is community, nothing at the moment. So next item on the agenda is 9.1.1 Planning Scheme Review, of which Councillor McClure has a conflict, which he's stepping out of the room. Thank you, Councillor. Okay. Councillors, can I have someone to introduce this, please? Councillor Maltby.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to update council on the findings and recommendations of the Mount Alexander Planning Scheme Review 2024, and to seek council approval to undertake a planning scheme amendment to implement the review's recommendations that relate to updating the planning scheme. Concurrently, the purpose of this report is to enable council to consider the Mount Alexander Shire Settlement Planning Assessment for adoption as per the recommendation found within the Mount Alexander Planning Scheme Review. And Mr. Mayor, I would move the recommendation as printed.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Henderson. Thank you. Is there any objections? Okay, thank you. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
So basically, the planning department have reviewed the planning scheme and come up with some alterations, but there is nothing in there that is major. Most recommended changes to the planning scheme are policy neutral changes that work to reduce unnecessary regulatory burden or update factual changes and do not change the intent behind existing planning controls. And basically, it's an annual or 4-yearly thing that needs doing from time to time so that the planning scheme is still in good order and not ruining the world.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Henderson, would you like to speak to your motion or reserve your right to speak?
I just speak very briefly to say, yes, I think it's something we have to do every term of council, and we're getting this one in just before the end, which is usually what happens. It's good. And in there is the schedule to public open space contribution and subdivision, which is now being formalised, put into the planning scheme. So now it's set there rather than having to be negotiated each time. It's good because we do need those open space contributions from people doing significant developments in the Shire. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councillors like to say something? Councillor Neer?
Thank you. As Councillor Henderson said, we do have to do this once every council term, which seems excessive, given the amount of work that goes into a planning scheme review. It's just huge. And the fact that it is coming in, you know, near the end of our term, apparently is the way it always happens because it is so big, such a big piece of work. I've really, I won't say enjoyed the process. I've learnt a lot through the process of this planning scheme review and other amendments to the planning scheme. The planning scheme is such a unruly kind of thing, and we do need to review it every now and then because things change so fast. But I think what I really wanted to mention, sitting here in our motion, is that as well as adopting the planning scheme review and forwarding it to the minister, we're also adopting the Mount Alexander Shire Settlement Planning Assessment 2023, which is a piece of work that will sit underneath the review and within the planning scheme. And this is an assessment that's used to inform current and future strategic planning work, including housing and neighbourhood character strategies and town-based settlement plans. So that document too, which is, you know, big itself, 2 big documents, is really important because it's guiding the way that we want housing to go, really, and making sure that it all happens in a way that's, you know, the most responsible that we can do. Obviously, acknowledging that we don't know the future. I think, you know, as Councillor Maltby said, a lot of the things picked up in the planning scheme review are policy neutral changes, but there are a couple of things I think worth pointing out. One of them is the open space contribution. I think that's really, really important. And there's also, and it took me a while to wrap my head around this, but there's also some changes to the environmental significance overlay in terms of Colaburn Water and them wanting to protect their catchments from, you know, being unhealthy. And I think that's pretty important too, as we learn more about how, you know, we need to look after our water and make sure we have enough, and also that it goes to the right places and doesn't flood people's houses. I remember really early on in council, we were kind of briefed about one of these recommendations, which we're not going to pursue at the moment, which is that elevating environmental sensitive design. And you know, reading that initially, I was like, oh, but why are we not pursuing that? And, you know, obviously, if you keep reading the way things are going, it's very, very likely that in the near future, this will be something that sits in the planning scheme for all of Victoria. So it's really just not wasting a lot of money up front for something that's absolutely coming anyway. So yeah, I feel good about this and happy to stop talking now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, councillor. Okay, so councillors, we have a motion in place in a second. All those. Oh, sorry, councillor, right of reply. Okay, thank you. We have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you, councillors. That motion is carried. Councillor Neer, if you'd like to, sorry, Councillor Henderson, if you'd like to get Councillor McClure.
I'll go and tell Councillor McClure that he can come back in, and I'm now leaving the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Councillor McCall, that last motion was carried. Okay, next item on the agenda is item 9.1.2, which is the planning scheme amendment. Plan Harcourt, consideration of planning panel report and adoption. Could I have someone introduce this item, please? Councillor McClure, thank you.
Mayor, I'm pleased to introduce this item, Planning Scheme Amendment Plan Harcourt, C94 MALX, consideration of the planning panel report and adoption. The purpose of this report is to enable council to consider the recommendations of the independent planning panel in relation to amendment C94 MALX and how to proceed. Amendment C94 MALX is a council proposed amendment to implement the recommendations of Plan Harcourt, which seeks to sustainably manage Harcourt's population growth and development. At this stage of the amendment, council must consider whether to adopt the panel's recommendation in full or in part, or abandon the amendment. While the panel is broadly supportive of the amendment and considers it's important to establish contemporary growth and development directions for Harcourt, the panel recommended that further work is completed before progressing, which included preparing a strategic level biodiversity assessment and revise the amendment to ensure the proposed planning provisions adequately consider biodiversity protection. 2, they prepare a commercial land demand assessment to inform the area proposed for rezoning to commercial 1 zone in the town centre. And 3, to update Plan Harcourt to ensure it is consistent with further work and updated amendment. The council officers have addressed this further work that was requested by the panel and have updated the planning provisions proposed in the amendment. It is recommended council adopts the amendment C94 MALX with the changes. And Mayor, I'm happy to propose that motion
As
as printed. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a seconder for that?
Seconded.
Thank you, councillor Maltby. Is there any opposition? No, thank you. Okay. Councillor McClure, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm pleased to do that. I mean, after this has been an incredible amount of work by the Director of Infrastructure and particularly his planning team. I think 7 years, somebody added up the time that this Plan Harcourt and this amendment's been under consideration. So I'd like to first of all congratulate the team on the work that they've done. I mean, we've got report after report after report. There's been a lot of work and a lot of things have been considered over a long period of time. There's been a lot of opportunity for community consultation, along with all the departments that have been involved right through the process. Even Panels Victoria, it was interesting to read through the work that they did and asked council to go back and look at a whole heap of recommendations, which to their credit, the team have done and addressed all of those, I think, to mostly everybody's satisfaction. So well done, Michael and your team, on this incredible amount of work. I was reading through the dates the other day. This thing started in Plan Harcourt, the growth plan was initiated in 2014. So there's 10 years since they've been considering some growth for this area. July 2020, Plan Harcourt was adopted by council. 2022, the Minister of Planning authorises council to proceed with amendments. And so it goes on through that period of time. It went to planning panel, and of course panel came while they were basically happy with what was proposed. They had a number of recommendations, which particularly included the biodiversity issue, which I know a lot of people from Harcourt are well aware of. So there's been a lot of work done on that in the last couple of years. And so I'm pleased that the amount of work that has been done on this plan. I think it's a good plan. It gives Harcourt a good plan to work through with good sustainable development over the next few years. And I think it'll be good for Harcourt to be planned and developed in such a precise and well-mannered way. So I would recommend this document and this motion to the rest of the councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor McClure. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to the motion or reserve your right?
I'll speak.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McClure is right. There's been a fathom of work done, and it does go along with council's idea that Harcourt is the growing area of the Shire. It would be good at the same time if the state government sped up the reopening of the Harcourt railway station, which we've been asking for the last 4 years.
Thank you, councillors. Other councillors? That would be you, councillor Anir.
I'm the only one left. What can I say? I mean, as we know, as council knows, Harcourt is going to be a major growth area for us. We're running out of room in Castlemaine for sure, and we really need to direct growth sensibly, making sure that it's bushfire and flood safe, and making sure that we don't impact our environment too much, making sure that it's close to services, making sure we have housing that suits the people who need the housing, all of that kind of stuff. I think, again, the journey of learning to understand planning scheme amendments is a steep learning curve, because it's such a lot. And I think I remember the briefing when we got back the panel report, and it kind of said, you can either abandon it or you can do this. And it was a bit of a shock, honestly. Considering how much work had already been done up to that point, it was a bit of a shock to kind of go, well, we can't really just abandon this. We can't walk away from this now. So, all credit to the team and to Michael. The planning team has gone and done everything that was recommended by the panel. And I think a couple of the big ones were obviously the strategic biodiversity assessment, which, initially we didn't know how much it would turn up. So we went out and did stage 1, and stage 1 suggested that further work was needed, and went out and did stage 2. And, it's good that we did, because it did turn up some, special flora and fauna in that area, which, isn't surprising really, given where we are. I think one of the other ones was the need for a commercial land demand assessment, which has also been done. And as far as they went, there was a lot of community consultation on both of those things as well, and submissions. And I think one of the things that I really value about the planning scheme amendments is that you're really working with community and their submissions. You're trying to resolve them in a way that works for everyone. It's not like some of our other things where we have to be a bit more firm and be like, no, it's not possible. This is really, we're trying to find a solution that works for everyone. And I do feel that especially, going out and doing quite a massive amount of work with this biodiversity study has really strengthened this planning scheme amendment, and will lead to better outcomes for Harcourt and for the people and, the animals and nature that lives there. So I'm pretty pleased with this outcome. I'm really hopeful that, from here it can be a bit more smooth sailing. But I think, hopefully this is kind of bringing this journey to a bit of an end, and, things can keep going from there. But I, for one, definitely think that it's a lot stronger now for those extra bits that were recommended. So, as much as it was a bit of a shock at the time and has costed a lot of energy and money, and I'm sure a lot of emotional labour, I'm really happy with what we've got now. So, recommend it to everyone as well.
Thank you, councillor. Councillors, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. That motion is carried. Thank you. Before I move on, I just want to reiterate what Councillor McClure said for both items 9.1.1 and 9.1.2, which is a lot of work gone into that. So even though we've approved it in 10 or 15 minutes, there's a lot of work behind that. So thank you very much, directors and officers. Thank you. And CEO, of course. Next item on the agenda is item 9.1.3, which is the community engagement policy. Can I have someone introduce that, please?
Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Neer.
I'm just catching up. It's a long report, that one. Good read though. Here I am, not at the community engagement policy. So the purpose of this report is to seek adoption of the community engagement policy. The policy was last adopted in February 2021, and a review has been undertaken to ensure it remains relevant and effective. Changes have been made to the principles section of the policy in order to align with the communications and engagement strategy adopted at the meeting of council in October 2023. The policy outlines council's commitment to delivering best practice community engagement. It presents a framework for authentic and intentional engagement practices that reflects the International Association for Public Participation Standards for Community Engagement. Council recognises and values the contribution of the Mount Alexander Shire community and acknowledges its capacity to strengthen council decision-making, and this has been reflected in the policy. While I'm here, I would like to move the recommendation that council adopts the community engagement policy.
Thank you, Councillor Neer. Do we have a seconder to that motion?
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Maltby. Councillor Neer, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Thank you, Mayor. I will, not for not too long. I am very passionate about community engagement, as is our community engagement officer at council, Sarah. I can see, I can see in the last 4 years the huge moves council has made as an organisation to get a bit better at community engagement. I don't think, I think it's a constantly evolving thing because not only do people expect more and less community engagement at different times, they expect it on different things, and it can be very tricky to know what the right amount is. Which is why, we have this communication and engagement strategy now, which is all about starting with asking. And, that resonates a lot with me because I find that if you ask people how they want to be consulted about things, what the best way, is to do that, that's always a good way to start things. This policy is really a refresh of the one that we adopted pretty early on in our term. And I guess the real updates are things that have carried across from our new communication and engagement strategy, which we haven't had before. And I think the major thing there is that the principles have changed. So the policy used to have 6 principles: transparent, timely and relevant, inclusive, accessible participation, closes the loop and evaluates. And now we are switched to 4 principles of being genuine, relevant, together and accessible. And I think that's great. I think the more we keep focusing on trying to do community engagement right up front and trying to capture as many different voices as we can and trying to make sure, we hear from, a good mix of people about the things that are going to affect them. I think that's what councils should be doing. And I like that we're, really giving this some focus in this term. And I hope we continue to as a new council comes in. So I think this is great. It's just cementing the work that we're doing, and everyone should vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Neer. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to the motion or reserve a right?
I'll just make a couple of comments. Councillor Neer mentioned the principles, and council is responsive to the needs of the community it serves. And our community feels heard and can influence and participate in those decisions that impact them. And that is what this policy does. It allows people to talk to the council and staff properly.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McClure, would you like to say something?
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, just to thank Councillor Neer for her comments and just add a couple. I mean, it certainly is an important part of council work is the community engagement. I had the enjoyment today, and I did enjoy the couple of hours that I spent with a listening post in the town hall just prior to the community luncheon. And I think it's something that this council should. We have worked hard in the last 12 months to try and get these listening posts up and going, and they're getting better. We're getting better at doing it. But I think it's an important part of the way we do make ourselves accessible to the community, and I hope we can continue doing the work that or supporting the work that Sarah's done to get us councillors along and future councillors along to these listening posts. I know our mayor does it regularly. I know Christine does it regularly, and I know others. Rosie has done it. Should I say councillors have done it regularly too. So I think it's an important part of the work that we do as council to make us accessible and certainly support this policy. So thank you. Mayor.
Thank you, councillor McClure. Councillor Neer, you have the right of reply.
There's not much more to say. I think it's great. I think we just keep doing what we're doing.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, we have a motion in front of us. All those in favour of that motion? Motion's carried. Thank you. And once again, Director Knight, I'd just like to thank yourself and your team for your excellent work there. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is item 9.2.1, which is the roadside conservation management plan. Could I have someone introduce that, please? Councillor Maltby, thank you.
The purpose of this report is to present the roadside conservation management plan 2024-2029, the plan for adoption. The roadside conservation management plan 2024-2029 is a guiding document for council officers to provide clear and consistent decision-making relating to managing rural roadsides across the Shire. The plan also assists in informing the community, landowners, contractors, and other management authorities on matters of roadside conservation. While the primary function of roads is to provide safe and effective transit, roadsides provide important biological values and crucial habitat connectivity across a fragmented landscape. The Roadside Conservation Management Plan 2024-2029 establishes Council's approach to vegetation management and details achievable actions to further protect, maintain and enhance the valued ecological communities and environmental assets intrinsic to our roadsides. The Roadside Conservation Management Plan 2024-2029 replaces the Roadside Conservation Management Plan 2012-27. And I would move the council adopts the Roadside Management Conservation Plan 2024-2029.
Thank you, councillor Maltby. Do I have a second for that motion? Thank you, councillor Neer. Is there any opposition? No. Okay, thank you. Councillor Maltby, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Once again, it's an important management plan. And as I said, council is responsible for roadside management, including the vegetation management, etc. This plan covers that, and it covers it properly, and it's been worked on very well by the staff to present it. It will assist everybody to manage the roadsides properly in the future.
Thank you, councillor Maltby. Councillor Neer, would you like to speak to the motion or reserve your right to speak?
I'll go now.
Thank you.
Ma'am. I really like this plan. I was pretty excited about the roadside conservation management plan coming through because I've discovered how much I enjoy a good management plan, especially, an asset management plan. I think I've realised for almost 4 years on council that it's really hard for a small-ish rural council with a pretty finite amount of resources and always under, a bit of financial strain and trying to spread themselves so thin over so many things. If we don't manage assets well now, it's going to get pretty bad down the track because everything's just getting tighter and tighter and tighter. So we need to set ourselves up now for the future, I guess. And I think this plan is wonderful. It's really accessible. I could read it and understand everything. I think when I started at council, and part of it was me. I just couldn't wrap my head around such a lot of it. Especially, a lot of the language. And I just find as I get better at it all, and I think as council stops using so many acronyms, which are basically my kryptonite, it's all getting a lot easier. I got so much out of this, and I kind of went from feeling as though it's impossible to manage the roadsides, which is the way I've kind of thought about it forever, because there just seems to be too much of it. And I just didn't think it was, I don't know, it didn't feel possible. It feels more possible now. I think it's something that we're all, I think people other than council are going to have to kind of come to the table to this a little bit. I think DTP have got to do their fair share, DECA and Parks. And obviously, you know, we've got such a lot of fantastic kind of community land care groups. So I hope, you know, we'll be able to work with council in their own ways to manage this kind of stuff. I've really loved learning about what a roadside and, you know, and furthermore, a road reserve kind of is. I think it blows my mind that, you know, reading the figures, there's 1,188 kilometres of rural roads in the Shire, which equals 2,376 kilometres of roadside. I didn't even think about the fact that, of course, with one road, there are in fact 2 roadsides, which just immediately doubles your work. I think what the plan does really well is acknowledging that it's a really, really big job and that council can do its bit to some extent and is also going to need some help from those other agencies and potentially from community as well. I think, though, there is a really kind of simple, well, not simple, but it's broken down really well into a bit of an action plan, which has, you know, I think it's 17, and it says here achievable actions, which I always love. So it's, you know, it's setting us up for in the next 5 years being able to achieve these 17 actions. And when you read through them, they're, you know, they're things that are worth achieving, things that I think will make, you know, big and little differences. But I guess, you know, I feel like council cops it a lot for roadside management and in terms of not doing a good enough job. You know, why are there weeds? Why is there this? Why is there that? There's just a lot of roadside, like, it's such a lot more than I thought and that I think most people think. And we've got such a small team to manage it all. I think, yeah, I think hopefully if people were to read this document, which is great, by the way, it's full of beautiful pictures, it's really accessible. I hope that you could read this and understand what we're trying to do at our end and what else needs to be done to actually make that kind of conservation an achievable thing. And also I think what it delves into really well is why it's important that we maintain our roadsides. They're more than just, you know, scrappy little bits of grass. They're actually really important to our overall environment. So yeah, I got a lot out of this and I'm really excited about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor McClure, do you have it? Say something.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, I support the plan. It's a good plan and it's work that council obviously has to do, particularly in relation to fire risk and there's a couple of issues. I mean, during the listening post today, I had one resident come in and was quite distressed about the fact that he had 2 collisions with kangaroos within the last couple of months along our roadsides and wanted to know what council was doing about maintaining the verges and keeping the grass down and so forth. So I think there's going to be some real challenges with the way we go about doing this. Certainly understand the importance of maintaining our habitat corridors and all the rest, but what we do have to realise is that these are service corridors for not only services but for cars to move through too. And the more we encourage animals and so forth to use these corridors, the more we have the danger of working out how we're going to deal with the conflict between animals and the travelling public. And in some instances, particularly out where this applies out in rural areas, cars that are travelling at speed. So we've either got to start looking at some ways of reducing the speed in these areas. I don't know, but there's going to be some real challenges. Totally support, understand what it's all about, but I just caution that I think the staff will have some challenges going forward in managing this process, but it's a good report and I do support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Maltby, you have the right of reply.
Both the other councillors are correct. And council does have to manage that massive size of 2,000 and something kilometres. But council manages rural roadsides to provide safe transport corridors, which what Councillor McClure was mentioning, protect and enhance environmental assets, so the animals as well as the plants, ensure safe property access, which is another important part of roadside management, protect service assets, and again that's similar to the property access, minimise fire impact, and protect the cultural heritage and amenity values. And this report here and plan does that.
Thank you, councillor Maltby. So councillors, we have a motion in front of us, which is that council adopts the roadside conservation management plan 2024-2029. All those in favour of that motion, please raise your hand. That motion's carried. Thank you. And once again, Director Anir, thank you for you and your team for all the hard work. Appreciate it. That brings us to the next item on the agenda, 9.3 economy, which there isn't any. So it's the delegates report. CEO, might head off with you if that's okay.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll be quick because I haven't been here, as you know. But thank you again for letting me be away for a few weeks to have a great holiday. I very much appreciate that. I also want to say a big thank you to Director Knight, who obviously was acting during that period of time, for her great work, and also Director Anir and many other staff who supported Director Knight in that process. But yeah, many of the things that are on the list were actually attended by Director Knight. So thank you for all of those meetings as well, Lisa. A couple that I will quickly mention: myself and Deputy Mayor Anir, actually, and Claire Richards, we had the opportunity to host a group of what are called emerging leaders under the Local Government Professional Association initiative that allows about 25 to 30 young up-and-comers, if you like, or not necessarily young, but up-and-comers through local government wanting to get more experience in leadership and the like, and they move around the state learning different things about different places, and we were able to host them right here in this room. When was that? Friday. And just a real treat to get to show off our shire, not just to talk about leadership and management styles and challenges and the like, but also getting to talk about our shire to people from all over the state, again, promoting what we've got, both from a community perspective as well as an organisational perspective. So really enjoyed that. Got to listen to the Deputy Mayor speak again. So really enjoyed that too. The other one I might mention is last night we had the Victorian Local Government Association's Candidate Training Workshop, at which you were there also, of course, Mayor, with some people come along to hear a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of what it would be to become a councillor. And I just wanted to, that reminded me just to take the opportunity, Mayor and Deputy Mayor, to once again say if there's anybody out there who still hasn't had a chat with us and would like to before they decide to put their hat in the ring or not, we'd love to have a chat if that's helpful to you. So I'll leave it at that, Mayor.
Thank you, CEO. Any councillors and or directors want to do a delegates report? No? Okay. Thank you. So it's up to me. So I also want to thank Director Knight for her unwavering support and professionalism whilst the CEO was away. So it was great. And during that time, we had to go to Canberra, and Lisa, I think Director Knight, I think, did a fabulous job. So thank you. Couple of things I did. I co-chaired the Indigenous Roundtable, which was my last for this term meeting and chairing the Indigenous Roundtable, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. I think it's a fantastic thing that we do within our community, and it's going a long way to help reconciliation, which is fantastic. Still a lot to do, but we're still moving forward. I attended the Newstead Community Lunch. It's one of the community lunches which is in our shire, which is fantastic. I try and get there when I can. I've been to a couple of others around the shire, and I encourage everybody, if they ever get a chance to do it, it's a really good community thing to do. In the Newstead case, it's only $7. It's a really good feed, so which is great. And you recall on the last council meeting, I think it was, we approved the Affordable Housing Trust. Well, I sat on the interview panel to find six committee members for that, which and a lot of very high caliber cohort of people with that, and they have been picked. We're going through that process now, but that was very good. And the the skills within our community is fantastic. So I just wanted to point that out. I have nothing else from the delegates' report. So the next, no notice of motions, no urgent special business. We do have a confidential item. So could I have someone move a motion for the confidential items, please?
I'll move the council closes the ordinary meeting of council 16th of July 2024. August, sorry. 1 month behind. With section 66(2)(a) of the Local Government Act 2020 in order to consider confidential information.
Okay, thank you, councillor. Do I have a second to that? Thank you, councillor Neer. All those in favour of the motion? That motion's carried. I now thank everybody for their attendance, and the meeting is closed. Thank you.